This is a little stamping maul. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend it. This is made by Berry King as well. I don't know what weight this is. I use this one primarily when I'm doing flower carving. And I got a bigger one that I use for all my regular stamps, like basket stamp, geometric stamp, crazy stamp, all those different stamps. But anyway, if you don't have one of these, you should get one. If you plan on doing some quite a bit of stamping or any stamping at all, what's cool about these is they're balanced, they're weighted, and they're made for use, you know, hours and hours on end. And they will save your wrist, they will save your arm, and they're really, really nice. I'm going to go ahead and get my flower center. These are the first couple of tools that I like to use first. Again, order of operations. This is the way I do it. This is what's always worked for me. I might be doing it wrong according to some people. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and take my flower center and go ahead and eyeball the center of this flower. And I'm not going to drive this home. I'm just going to make a little impression so that you can kind of see where the flower center is. And I'll go ahead and bring you guys in here a little bit tighter so you guys can kind of focus on, maybe see a little bit better what I'm doing in here. There we go. So I got my flower center just roughly in there, just barely tapped it. And now I'm going to take my camouflage tool. Again, you don't need to do this. If you don't have one, you don't have to do it. And I like to take this and run it along the bottom side of the stem. Just lightly tap it. The stem of the flower. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my bevelers. I like to start beveling. I always start with the flower first. And get my shot bag over here. This is a little shot bag filled with BBs or lead shot. Just made it here in the shop. These are invaluable. Hold your work in place while you're running around it with a beveler, and really handy to have that. This is the order in which I do things, and you've got to kind of sit back and look at the layout and see what's on top of the other. I've always been taught this, the focal point of any layout should be the flowers. So I always bevel the flowers first. And again, like I said, I might be doing it wrong. I don't know. This is just the way I've always done it. So when you're beveling, if you look at the layout, these petals are on top of this petal. So the shading in the beveling is going that direction. So it gives the illusion that these petals are on top of this petal. Now if you rotate the flower over this way and you look at the way this is laid out, to me, in my mind's eye, this petal looks like it should be over the top of that one. So I'm going to bevel this petal next, and then I'll bevel this petal last. So you're trying to give the illusion, a 3D illusion in leather, and add shape and contrast. And again, like I said earlier, if you didn't have a background tool, you don't have to cut this border in here and do the backgrounding. You can just go ahead and start beveling. God knows backgrounding takes a lot of time, especially when you're using bar grounder. Okay, so I've got the flower done. My order of operations is to move to the next focal point. The next focal point in my mind's eye will be the leaves. And what I'm doing when I'm beveling leaves is I'm trying to make the bevel darker over here or deeper, and then I lighten up on my taps when I get out to the end of this leaf. So in other words, this line isn't as deep toward the end of the stem of the leaf. So if I start over here on this end of the stem, if I start over here on this end of the stem, it's going to be light. My tapping, my impression is going to be light to medium to deeper. See if it comes through on the sound. I don't know. We'll see if it comes through on the sound here. So I'm going to go deep or heavier, and then lighten up as I get to the end and taper off. I've got this little feature in the inside. I've got two different size bevelers. One's a little bit wider, one's a little bit narrower. And I use the narrower one to get into these tight corners when I'm beveling here. And let's see if I can get in here and bevel this out. This pattern is made to where this stem depicts, it wants to be on top of the rest of the stem work. The next one that's going to be on top of the rest of the stem work is going to be the actual stem that feeds into the flower bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll bevel that guy. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up the bevel work on these stems. These two stems are neutral, but my eye is telling me this stem is on top of the other. I'm going to turn around and bevel this way first, and then go back over here and bevel this one. If you're doing this for the first time and you're just learning how to do it, try to be very accurate as possible with your bevel lines. There's start and stops to everything. You don't want to run over the line and get into the stem work on the other feature or the next feature next to it. Just try to be as accurate as you can and take your time. So this one here is going to be beveled that way because this little space in here is background. Now this main sticker or the stem that's coming out of the bottom of the flower, which is below the main feeder of the flower, this one is going to be on top of these three little stems here, and that's why I'm going to bevel it this direction. Okay, next what we're going to do is make sure we bevel the leaves out, because the leaf over in this corner is on top of this stem or sticker. I guess we'll call it a sticker. Anything that's got a point to it, we'll call it a sticker. The flower stem would be what's underneath here. Probably been calling them stems the whole time. Okay, that concludes all of our beveling. Now we'll move on to backgrounding. Okay, like I said earlier, you don't need bar grounding tools. You can use a simple mat tool or background mat tool, or you don't have to background it at all. You can just do a simple bevel job and move on to carving your flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and do use a bar grounding, a bar grounder for a background method, just because that's what I've always done and how I learned. So we'll start right here. This is the widest bar grounder that I have. I'm going to start right here. When you're bar grounding, if you are using a bar grounding, you want to try to use them as uniformly as possible. With each tap, you want to try not to run over the previous row of bar grounding. You want to try to keep it as clean and as precise as possible. I'm going to zoom you in here so you can see what I'm talking about. So each tap is its own row, and I'm going to just move on and run this bar grounder as clean as I can. You don't want to try, you're trying not to run over the previous row, because if you get to doing that too much, it starts to look like hamburger and it's not very clean. So you're trying to get a good deep impression in there, and later on I'll explain why. It gives it a depth and makes everything in the foreground pop out, the background stay back. But also it will help with your finishing technique if you choose to use a finishing technique like I'm going to use. And as you do this, if you're new to doing this, you'll get consistent with the amount of power or how hard you hit the stamping tool with your mallet. It doesn't come easy at first. Some people, I've seen some people, they really struggle with it, and it takes a little bit of time. It takes a lot of time. It takes repetitive muscle memory, whatever you want to call it, repetitive motion, to get consistent with that amount of pressure or that amount of power that you use to hit the tool with. And you see I'm going to keep on switching to different size bar grounding tools to fill in and try not to overlap where I previously bar grounded. Okay, there we go. We're all bar grounded or back grounded. There we go. We're going to go on to doing some shading, and we'll get this thing finished up. I got my flower center. I'm going to go ahead and use one of the pear shaders that I showed you earlier. It's got a line. There's a line shader. See if that will focus. Maybe. Anyway, so I've got my slide impression of the flower center that I did earlier. I'm going to go ahead and take and outline this flower center with my pear shader, my line pear shader or vein pear shader. I don't know what the exact term is for it. I'm going to just go ahead and go around the outside of the faint impression of the flower center. And just give it a little bit of color in there and try to darken up the center. I could do more, but that's about how I want it. Then I'll come in here with the flower center, and this is when I get out the big maul or big stamping maul, the heavier one, and drive this flower center home. Make sure we got a good impression. You want to make sure not to let that flower center bounce or dance around when you're doing that final deep impression on it. Now we have a pedal stop. And, you know, if you don't have a pedal stop, you can just leave it at that. There we go. Got the pedal stop done. Now I'm going to get my big smooth face pear shader and start shading the flower. Now this is where the flower really comes to life. And what I like to do is come out here to the edge, and I'm going to give it sort of this side to side action, and you're going to want to make sure that on the wide part of the pear that you have the tool rocked up on this edge, because you don't want to see an impression of this entire pear shape. You just want to see this edge. Like so. Now I might let this shading on the flower drift in toward the center a little more on this particular feature. And this is something that will come with experience and time. You'll figure out how hard you need to hit it, what angle to use, how to rock it back and forth, what motion you need. It's just, you've got to do it. It's repetitive motion. And I tried to aim the shading toward the center. So over here, my angle on my tool is this way. Over here, the angle of the tool is this way. Over here, the angle of the tool will be toward the center this way. So what this is doing is giving shape and life to the flower petals. I got a little bit overzealous there. You can kind of see the shape of the tool there, which is okay. Only I'm going to know about it. Over here at this point, instead of having the rounded edge of the tool, where are we at? There we are. Instead of having the rounded edge of the tool, I'm going to use the point of the tool in the point of the feature here on the leaf, or on the petal, I'm sorry. Like so. Then I'll turn it back around and use the rounded edge. Over here, use the point. Then on my stickers, I'll use the same exact pear shading tool, and I'll get in here on the edge of my stickers and I'll give it a pretty good punch right as close to the edge of the point of the sticker as I can get it, but still staying inside of the feature. I'm trying not to run out into the backgrounding at all. There's another sticker there. On this one, these stickers here are a little bit narrow to use this big pear shader, so I'll switch down to my smaller pear shader and use the point on this one. And there you go. Those are done. Oh, you know what? I forgot to background this little feature here on this sticker stem thingy. I'll go ahead and do that real quick. There we go. Now we'll move on to our leaves. There's a lot of things you can do with leaves. I've seen them done several different ways. I've done several different things. There's a veiner tool, a double-sided veiner tool that they make, which will give lines in the leaf. This has got little lines engraved in it, and you can run that into your leaf along the center stem and go in both directions on it. You can do that. You can leave them just like this, which is what I'm going to do, because we're just doing a simple, trying to do as simple as we can with the flower carved layout with as least or as little amount of tools as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and take my pear shader that's got the lines in it, and I'm going to go ahead and shade these leaves and get them a little bit of shape. So I'm impacting, I'm punching this in pretty heavy on the outside and then lightening up as I get toward the middle. Or as I get toward the center of the leaf, or where the vein of the leaf is. There we go. Hopefully I'm staying in frame. This is all brand new to me. That's why I got this piece of blue tape there. Now I'll take my little wiggler. You could use a wiggler like this, or you could use a straight, I don't know what this is called. It's kind of a, I don't know, crescent, not even a crescent shape. It's kind of a quarter circle. Smooth veiner wiggler thingy. I don't know what they're called. But this is a wiggler. It's got a little wavy line to it, and it's still a quarter circle shape. And I had some features for the leaves here. When you're doing this on the leaf, you just want to make it symmetrical. So in other words, I made 4 impressions on this side. Need to make 4 impressions on the opposite side. Well, maybe you don't need to. You can make it your own program. Do it the way you want. That's just the way I do it. So after that, this is pretty much what I would call just about done on a plain stamping layout. The only thing I'm going to do now is use a pedal lifter. I'm going to get underneath here and lift up these petals. I'm going to get underneath here and lift up these features on the leaf. I do a few knife cuts, and we're going to call it good. For a pedal lifter, they make them several different ways, and it's purely aesthetic. You don't have to have one. Here's a couple that I have that I bought. These are made by Barry King as well. And they're meant to get underneath the concave area of the pedal here and sort of lift it up out of the leather and give it more of a 3D effect. Now, I've got these, but I never use them. What I use is a ground down screwdriver that's ground at an angle, and I've used this for years, and this is where the plastic handle used to be on the screwdriver. It broke off at some point a long time ago, and that's what I use for a pedal lifter. You can make one of these if you got a grinder and an old screwdriver, and it's just a little shank on the screwdriver. The shank is probably only 3/16 maybe. So I come in here with my shop bag and find the concave areas in the flower that I want to lift up. Here, 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 here. I'll come, rotate, work my way around the flower. I'm going to go ahead and try to zoom you in on this so you can see what I'm doing. Maybe. So in this concave area here, 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 and fast forward now. Okay, so there you go. There's the pedal lifter on the flower. You can see the impression that the lifter made. Kind of goes underneath the leather and sort of lifts it up and gives it more of a 3D effect. So now we'll do the leaves, and the leaves are going to be in this little concave area in between where we shaded it with the line pear shader. There you go. That's about done. The last thing I'm going to do for this particular pattern is get my swivel knife and do some decorative cuts in the flower petals. Little guys right there. Little guys right there. I might add a couple other tapering decorative cuts to the stems and the stickers. Pretty good for a simple little carved layout. It's nothing, it's not too fancy, it's not too involved, it's not too in-depth. It's pretty simple, just a handful of tools, and we're done. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, the other spur strap, and you guys don't need to see that. I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then the next video will be on how we finish the spur straps out, how I like to finish them. There's a couple different ways. You can paint them, you can dye them, you can antique them. There's a couple different ways. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I think I might paint these just so they pop a little bit and be kind of cool, kind of fun to video that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that and got something out of it. If you have any questions, leave comments and questions below, or you can always email me or message me on Instagram at BuckarooGear. Thanks for watching.